What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop and welcome to my Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee review. Now, I've never officially reviewed a Pokemon game on the channel before, but seeing as how I have had more time with these games to cover them more extensively thanks to being full-time on YouTube now, I thought it made all the sense in the world to give an official review, so that is what I am going to do today. Given that there are very mixed opinions on this game and the supposed problems with these games have been well stated in the days and months leading up to the release of these games, I have decided to go forward with the review as follows. I will be looking at major parts of the game such as the gameplay, the story, the graphics, and the music, and basically giving you my genuine impressions of them. I will also be taking a look at those problems and issues that people have brought up over the pre-release coverage of these games, and give you my genuine response now that I have experience with these games. I'm not going to rebuff or refute any of these opinions, I'm simply going to bring them up as a topic of discussion and then give you guys my genuine opinion as to whether or not they're actually a problem now that I have hands-on experience with the games. I will then finally, after all it's said and done, give this game a score out of 10, so it'll be 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, whatever, just like you do in a regular review. So with all of that being said, I have laid all the ground rules, so why don't we go ahead and just take a look at how good Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee really are. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be taking a look at here is the gameplay. The gameplay of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee has been a hot topic of discussion ever since these games were first announced because it is so significantly different from the main series games. But now that I personally have had a chance to have some hands-on experience, I am going to tell you my opinion as far as how it stacks up compared to the regular old main series games. The first of these concerns were Pokemon Go integrations. Things like replacing wild Pokemon battles and the standard capture method of Pokemon with the Pokemon Go style method of capturing Pokemon without battles raised a lot of red flags for a lot of people, and had some people even going so far as to say that these games were just Pokemon Go for the Switch. Now, while I certainly will admit that changing the capture mechanic of wild Pokemon in a Pokemon game is absolutely a big deal, does it compromise the quality of these games in particular, and does it ruin the Pokemon game experience that we have come to know and love as fans over the years? Well, in one word, nope, not at all, absolutely not, no way. Oh, whoops, I accidentally used more than one word there, sorry. The first potential issue I want to discuss here is the claim that these games are just Pokemon Go for the Switch, and simply put, this is completely and utterly untrue. The only major integration that Pokemon Go has in these games, outside of being able to transfer Pokemon from Pokemon Go into Pokemon Let's Go, is the wild Pokemon capture mechanic, replacing the standard wild Pokemon battles and capture mechanic that we see in the regular main series games. And even though this is a big focus of the game, it does not detract from the main series experience whatsoever. So even though the Pokemon Go catching style is a big part of these games and they do make it a big focus, overall it really only makes up like 5 to 10% of the gameplay overall, meaning that 90 to 95% of these games is a regular, standard, main series Pokemon game experience. So just taking that and looking at it at face value, this game is certainly not just Pokemon Go for the Switch. But as I said, the Pokemon Go capture mechanic is a big part and a big focus of the games themselves, and of course with such a big change, it could negatively impact the quality of these games overall. So the big question here is, in actuality, does this significant change negatively impact the quality of the Let's Go games and the main series Pokemon experience overall? Well, in my experience, no, it does not. First off, you're not going to have to worry about battling wild Pokemon for grinding purposes because there are plenty of trainer battles in these games, like more than plenty, to the point where you're not going to have to worry about missing out on that battle experience. And on top of that, you also get experience for catching Pokemon as well, and all of your Pokemon get experience due to the experience share, which is another thing I will get into later. Even though you do not have to weaken a Pokemon in order to capture it with this method, capturing a Pokemon with this method is just as challenging as it has ever been because this new mechanic actually presents its own challenges that the standard Pokemon catching formula does not have. First off, you actually have to aim and hit your target when throwing a Pokeball. Unlike in the regular main series games where you just press A to win and the Pokeball hits its mark every time, you actually have to aim and precisely throw the Pokeball in order to even have the chance to hit the Pokemon and capture it. And this might seem easy enough because obviously we've had the experience with Pokemon Go, but also just like in Pokemon Go, Pokemon will move around, they'll be all over the screen, and aiming is actually harder than it seems, and you actually do have to throw in a straight line in order to actually hit your mark. I never felt like I was losing out on any enjoyment of catching Pokemon as I was going through the game with this mechanic, but my personal best experience in catching a Pokemon was when I caught one of the legendary Pokemon, Articuno, for the first time. So in my encounter with Articuno, I had defeated it in battle and proceeded into the actual capture phase of my encounter with Articuno. And let me tell you, it was not easy at all to capture this thing. This caused me to use up all of my Ultra Balls that I had at the time because you know I'm not going to be using my Master Ball on an Articuno, so I was left with Great Balls and my hopes weren't very high to be able to catch an Articuno with a Great Ball. But after a large amount of throws, Articuno veered off to the left side of the screen and I kind of threw my Joy-Con and flicked it with a little bit of curve and I nailed my mark exactly, gaining an excellent throw, and this is what allowed me to catch Articuno, and let me tell you, it was an absolutely exhilarating experience. Speaking completely from the heart here, I have not had as much fun catching a single Pokemon when I caught Articuno in Let's Go since I was about 6 or 7 years old during the height of my childhood Pokemon experience. This whole mechanic really allowed me to just have a childlike sense of wonder when it came to catching Pokemon, which really hasn't been replicated since I was an actual child, and I think that is a huge deal when it comes to the enjoyment of this game. Moving on from capturing though, the other major issue that a lot of people had with these games since they were announced is that this game is way too casual and it's going to be way too easy, and it just removes way too much of the experience of a regular Pokemon game. The first thing we're going to cover under this umbrella of issues is the fact that there are no held items or abilities in this game. Now, this is obviously a big deal because held items have been a staple since Gen 2, and abilities have been a staple since Gen 3, and abilities in particular, as well as held items as well, have a big thing to do with the competitive side of Pokemon, which is a big chunk of the Pokemon fanbase, so I can see and totally understand why this is a big deal. However, when it comes to the main series experience, not including like the competitive battling and breeding experience, but just the main storyline, the main part of the game itself, it does not affect the enjoyment of these games whatsoever, in my own opinion. In the main storyline of a Pokemon game, it's not going to be as nearly competitive as it is in actual Pokemon competitive battling, and so you're not going to be relying on your abilities as much in the main story. And because of that, I personally hardly even noticed that abilities were gone in the first place. The only thing that really kind of reminded me of this was when I was facing Pokemon like Weezing, who normally have a Levitate ability, who I could now hit with ground type moves, since in this game they don't have the Levitate ability. But honestly, that was more of a refreshing thing to not have to worry about, as opposed to a thing that made the game less enjoyable overall. And as far as no held items goes, I have a true story of my experience with the game that will maybe help to shed some light on how this affects the overall gameplay. I had gotten to the Viridian City Gym, the final gym in the Kanto region, before heading off to face the Pokemon League. And before I could challenge the gym, I had to head off to Professor Oak's lab because the gym was still locked. Well, when I got to Professor Oak's lab, Blue was there as well, and through conversing with Blue as well as Professor Oak, they end up giving you a Keystone and some Megastones. And it wasn't until I went to go give my newly acquired Venusaurite to my Venusaur that I realized that, oh hey, yeah, there are no held items in this game. It literally took me until the end of the game to actually realize this, because it was that much of a non-issue and I was just having too much fun with the game itself to even notice at all. The next 2 points we're going to kind of lump together because they kind of go hand in hand, and that is the claim that these games are way too casual, which is going to result in them being ridiculously easy because they're directed towards kids. Not only were these games not too easy, they were significantly challenging. As someone who has been playing Pokemon since Pokemon Yellow, I have almost 20 years of experience playing Pokemon games, and even with all of that experience and knowing how Pokemon games work, these games still challenged me a lot. Just to give you an idea of how challenging these games are, even though I caught every single brand new Pokemon I hadn't caught before as I was going throughout my journey, and even though I battled literally every NPC trainer in the game in the main story, and even though both of these things gave experience to all of my Pokemon in my party through the experience share each and every time, I was still, for a large part of the game, behind the level curve of this game, and for 95% of the game, I was either at the level curve, meaning my Pokemon were the same levels as my opponents, or I was slightly behind the level curve. And naturally, this made the game very challenging because my opponents were very strong, and in a lot of instances, they were actually stronger than me. So even though I can only speak from my personal experience in this review, in my experience, this game was more than substantially challenging for even the most experienced Pokemon player, but at the same time, it is inviting enough for newcomers to be able to get through the game as well, especially since there's the new co-op mode, which aside from being just a great addition to the game in general, also allows you to tag team opponents if you are having a tough time with a certain trainer or Pokemon. So that pretty much sums up the gameplay section of this review, and if I had to sum up my experience with the gameplay in just a few sentences, I would say that this game is an absolute blast to play. Now, these next 2 sections are going to be a lot more brief than the gameplay section because the gameplay section is where we had to discuss the most issues. These next 2 sections we're going to be discussing are the graphics of the game as well as the music of the game, and I'm just going to give you my impressions on them now that I've seen and heard both of them with my own eyes and ears. Starting with the graphics, these games are beyond beautiful. I know there were some issues with the graphical style that these games were taking, and some people once again thought it was too kiddie or childish, but let me tell you, I actually think this is the perfect graphical style for Pokemon. Not only is it by far the best looking Pokemon games we have ever seen, the graphical style fits the world of Pokemon beautifully. Everything is so bright and vibrant and just really gets you excited about playing the game. The Pokemon models look fantastic and the character human models look absolutely phenomenal as well. Another great thing about the graphics is that the Pokemon are proportionally sized as well, so you have huge Pokemon that are actually huge like Onix, and then you have teeny Pokemon that are actually teeny like Diglett, and they're all equally represented, which just really allows the game to feel more immersive and alive, especially when you get to see these Pokemon in the overworld, which is another great part of the game, getting to encounter Pokemon in the overworld instead of having to do random encounters. When it comes to the music of these games, we of course already know what the music sounds like, and we are hearing in this version of Kanto newly orchestrated tracks of the classic themes that we have heard in the original games, as well as Fire Red and Leaf Green. And in my own opinion, they did a pretty good job of reorchestrating the tracks for these games. The one issue I have with the soundtrack of these games, which is admittedly kind of a minor issue, is that in a lot of the city and town themes, ensemble strings are featured as the main instrument that kind of gets to be at the top of the mix and a lot of times play the melody as well. And in my own opinion, this kind of took away from the variety of the soundscape of the soundtrack, and it made a lot of the tracks sound too similar in my opinion. That's not to say that there wasn't any variety in the soundtrack at all, because there were a lot of different instruments featured, such as different types of guitars in the Vermilion City theme, there were woodwinds and flutes in the Lavender Town City theme, there were electric guitars and brass in the Battle theme, so there was a lot of different styles of music. There were just a lot of strings in the town themes as well, which is something I kind of noticed as a repeated thing as I went through the game. And last but not least, because frankly I almost forgot to include it, we have the story section of this review. Now once again, like the previous 2 sections, this is going to be pretty straightforward because being that these games are a remake of Yellow version, we already pretty much know what the story is. But it is a very important part of the game, so of course we've got to give it a review. And honestly, if I'm just telling you guys what I thought of the story straight up with no BS whatsoever, I thought these games did a phenomenal job of handling the story. Now, obviously, the developers didn't have a whole lot of room to move with the story of these games because the story of these games had already been established, given that they are a remake of Pokemon Yellow. However, the one thing that they did do with the story that I absolutely appreciate the crap out of is that they added a bunch of little things throughout the course of the plot of the main story that were brand new and that we had never seen before, and even though they didn't really go away from the source material, so it wasn't any sort of big major change that could negatively impact the plot since it is a classic game, they instead peppered in brand new things instead of making huge changes and fleshed out different parts of the story that hadn't been fleshed out before to give you a much more in-depth experience for those particular things. And seeing these brand new instances pop up in the story all throughout the game, because it wasn't just one or two new things, it was several things throughout the main story that were brand new that we hadn't seen in the original, and it just made the story a treat to experience all over again because you never knew when a brand new experience or a new cutscene or whatever was going to pop up, which just really added to the fun that these games provided. Okay, so now that we have covered all of the different sections that I was going to cover with the review of this game, it's time for me to give it my official score. And the official score that I give this game is, drumroll please, 9.3 out of 10. The reason why I decided on 9.3 is because I knew I definitely wanted to give it a 9 out of 10, but I felt that 9.5 was too high, even though I wanted to give it more than 9, so I decided to go in the middle with 9.3, and I fully stand by that score. I know I can only speak from my own personal experience, but honestly guys, I had an absolute blast with these games, and it's the most fun I've had with a Pokemon game since Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and maybe the most fun overall. I know that's a huge deal, and I do not take what I'm saying lightly. I just can't deny how much fun I absolutely had with these games, and I hope we get to see more like them later on down the line, because this is the style of Pokemon game that I honestly want to see moving forward, and it's something that is just way, way, way too good to simply do one time. And there we have it, everybody. That is my review of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. If you were on the fence about these games, or even if you were against them before the release, I strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to at least give them a try before you actually write them off for good, even if you're only borrowing a friend's game or you're renting it or something like that. Even if you don't want to buy it, at least find a way to try it, because I am telling you guys, these games are so much fun, and every single Pokemon fan needs to at least give them a try before they write them off completely. With that being said though, I really hope you guys enjoyed my first ever review. If you did, be sure to give it a like and let me know in the comments below your own thoughts about the game. Do you agree with my assessment, or do you feel slightly differently? If you are new to the channel as well though, be sure to subscribe for more Pokemon content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, including a lot of Let's Go content, and I also have my Let's Play that goes live every Monday and Friday as well, so just a great time on the channel, and I would love to see you stick around. But with all of that being said, I will be back on Saturday, tomorrow, for another new video. I hope you guys all had a great Thanksgiving as well if you're from America, or a great Thursday if you're from somewhere else that doesn't recognize it. And with all of that being said, I'll see you then. Be sure to hit that notification bell so you can know when that video goes live. And until then, I love you guys, and I will smell you guys later.